Hello. So you might have noticed that I haven't been publishing in my Substack for quite a while, and this is because I've been working on a my first work of fiction. The title is Rajah Versus Conquistador, and I was planning to actually publish chapters as they are completed. However, I realized that the whole thing needs to be drafted first before I could polish each of the chapters. So I won't be publishing any of these chapters until like I drafted everything. And so far, it's been taking me like a month to draft each chapter. So that means maybe I'll be starting to publish the chapters in maybe, I don't know, 10 months or so. We'll see. So I was actually planning to record this for my um like writing coach or interlocutor for this work, a published author here in the Philippines. His name is Mitya, but he has a different he uses a different name for his books. And well, he he prefers to stay private, so I won't mention his book name here. But I prefer to work with the garage door open. That's why I'm publishing this description of like or this update, and just to make you know serendipities possible or expand the possibilities of serendipity. Give me a second. So my plan is to first describe the the structure of the story. I mean, this is also um, this will help me as well think about it, like if the story will work with the structure, and then I'll share. Let's see. I'll share how to navigate this database. I mean, if you're interested in like looking at the drafts of the stories, I mean this Rome database is public. You could access this. I'll share the link to this. And then I'll we'll see. If I have time, I'll share how I'm using Rome for writing fiction. This is my first time to write fiction, and also possibly how I'm using AI for writing fiction. Um, if I couldn't talk about it in this video, I'll do that in a succeeding video. Okay, so first, the current story. Just thanks for lighting. So the story is like it uses the historical record and the anthropological record as a like the limits of the story. So the historical record is mainly the Chronicle of Antonio Pigafetta, the chronicler of Ferdinand Magellan in the first circumnavigation of the world, particularly the section wherein they stay in what is now the Philippines and where Magellan is killed. So, and then the anthropological record are mainly based on this book called Raiding, Trading, and Feasting by Laura Junker, and also a lot of anthropology of kingship and sacrifice. So those are my main like limitations, and within those limitations, I try to make a story. I attempt to make it as what you call this as crazy as possible, or at least also as true as possible, based on like the current experience of like in anthropology. There's this figures called big men or orang besar in the Southeast Asian literature. So my familiarity with that as someone who lives within this culture, and as someone who reads and studies this particular figure in this culture, um, and also some history of like the Visayas. So those are my limitations, and then the I'm trying to build a story within those that context. So, what is it like to be a king, a ruler within that world, and you encounter this the Spaniards coming in? So, how would you actually react to that? So, that's that kind of like mind I'm trying to write fiction through. So, this story is written in the second person. So it's all like it's the plot of you. So I'm trying to put the reader and myself in the mindset of Rajah Humabon. So the ruler of Cebu when Magellan arrived, or when Magellan encountered the the peoples of what is now the Philippines. So I think, I mean, it just fits so well once I like like the story of how Magellan died and the moves of Rahomabon made so much sense once I imagined him to be this Austronesian big man or the Southeast Asian Orang Besar. So that is like the world I'm trying to build, or the mind I'm trying to write the story through. And to get an idea, so I wrote the first um, chapter, before all this, just to have a prototype of like how this sounds like. And I read it once in a while to remind myself that this is possible. I can do this, and this like what I'm trying to achieve here. So you could actually just go to explorations at PH, and then this is that uh, this this is that first chapter. So this is what I'm trying to do. Like this sort of captures the kind of story I'm aiming for here. The voice, and then the the pacing, the kind of work of fiction I'm aiming for. So far, I have drafted chapter two, three, and the last chapter. So I first wrote the first chapter, I wrote the last chapter. This is the scene where the massacre of the Spaniards happened by Humabon. So that will make a lot of sense. And like I wrote this also, to as a kind of ethnography. It's like why would Humabon massacre his allies? No. So given the background of ritual sacrifice and then vengeance within the in that society. So it started to make a lot of sense. So and then I wrote chapter two after that, and chapter which is like a background on Humabon. So and chapter three is like It just sort of appeared, the story of his brother, the Bendahara, and I'm using Pomodoros to record my work here. So uh, let me just record another 25 minutes. So the Bendahara appeared as the story progressed. I think this was because I had to explain or to make sense of the tears of Tupas when he encountered Magellan. Why would he cry? Um, why would he cry? So this is like a backgrounder on the of the father of Tupas, the Bendahara. So the Bendahara, so it brought me back to the kingdom of Malacca. So I place him there, as like as a figure of order versus Humabon, which is a figure of power. And Tupas, the son of the Bendahara, is like a clueless boy who's supposed to succeed Humabon. So like I don't know. It's like that those characters made sense as I developed the story. So so the second chapter two, we introduce the conflict between the this inner conflict in Humabon's mind of like the boy and then the serpent. So the boy being this like it's like I needed to describe psychopathy without using that modern word and the moralistic bias behind it. So how would a psychopath be described in a sacrificial society, pre-Christian, pre-modern sacrificial society? So um, I tried to develop that idea in this chapter and using the inner boy and his imprisonment as a transformation into psychopathy, or here is like described as like some becoming beyond good and evil, and or beyond becoming beyond good and evil. Um, so that's the figure I'm using, or the metaphor I'm using in this chapter. And if you know the history here, that it sort of jives with Santo Nino, the introduction to Santo Nino. So that's that I'm preparing for that symbolism. Chapter three. So I'm connecting the developments in Malacca and the succeeding kingdoms after its fall in 1511. So the cultures at play here is like the ancient animist culture, which brought by the Austronesians, and then you have the influence from India, the Srivijaya and the Majapahit, the influence. That's why it's Raha. That's why they have Raha, or we had a Raha, and that's why I also speculate on the origins of Bai, their brother. And then the developing sultanates, which is like the Islamic influence, bringing in the monotheistic God even before the coming of the Spaniards. So that's what I try to introduce here in this chapter. And also the figure of the Bendahara as the conflict there is that the old priesthood of the Bailan from the animist Austronesian worldview goes in conflict into this monotheistic influence, Islamic monotheistic influence of this like the early sultanates in Southeast Asia. Johor, Sulu, and the other the other succeeding sultanates after the fall of Malacca. So, uh, so there's another conflict introduced there. And then chapter 4, I haven't written that yet, or I've written like a few paragraphs there, but I'm pausing the writing to go into the literature of the conquistadors and the medieval European mindset before I write this. I want to hear the voice of Magellan. Like, how would Magellan think? And also because Enrique, it's funny because like Enrique in some of these like depictions is wearing like a bahag or something like that, like this G string. When in fact, if you think about it, he was in Spain for at least 10 years. I think Magellan was in, might have been, I have to confirm this, might have been part of the conquest of Malacca by Portuguese in 1511. That's when he would have gotten this slave, would have bought the slave, Enrique. So Enrique spent like 10 years in Spain by 1521, or maybe 9 years. So almost a decade in Spain. So he would have been like Hispanized. My guess is he was treated like a son by Magellan because he was like Magellan. Enrique was part of Magellan's will and testament that he would be released from slavery at the death of Magellan, and he would be given some significant amount of money. So he was, at the very least, Magellan's very loyal assistant. And you see this in the I realized when I was writing this, he was a central player in this story, not merely an interpreter, but like, I mean, he is like the what you call this, the nexus of this of the games here, because like between Humabon, the Spaniards, the Visayas, the Spaniards, he's like he was like I mean he had to say play a central part because he was the interpreter. So the I make him his his character is essentially like a Christian normie, you know. So he is like he believes, of course, is this Christian worldview of equality of all men, siding with the weak. But at the same time, his weakness is like he is not a power player. He's like he's actually closest to our mindset now, avoids conflict. Um, and his weakness is that he lies in order to avoid conflict. So that's like the weakness I placed in this character. Um, and then we start to see Magellan. So we don't see Magellan yet, but we see stories about him um, through Enrique at this point. So Enrique will be telling Humabon in their drinking sessions. So we will let us see in chapter 1 the weakness of another weakness of Enrique. He has a weakness for tobacco or liquor. That happened and it was recorded by Pigafetta when they were hanging out with Colombo in Eastern Visayas. So Enrique got drunk there. So that's part of his weakness. So anyhow, he spills the stories. He relays the mutiny that happened during the passage through South America and the decisiveness of Magellan. So we see part of Magellan's um, character there. So Humabon So we see through the eyes of Humabon. So we're hearing a lot of things about Magellan and Christianity from Enrique, hearing it through Humabon, but we also hear or we see the interpretation of Humabon through the narration that he views these words from Enrique through the lens of power. So he's always playing this game, like how do I win against these new players in this game that they're playing, or he is playing. So this is Humabon's game. So the rest is like I'm using key points in the narration of Pigafetta as the succeeding chapters. So the next chapter will be the baptism. So we'll see there Magellan. So I'll be trying to contrast the ritual sacrifice of Austronesian, common, global, culturally universal sacrifice, and then Christian sacrifice through the mass and the baptism that Humabon experiences, and then which is explained by Enrique. Enrique will also actually be like super intelligent. He's like unbelievably knowledgeable in Christian doctrine and observations about the society in Spain. So this is a work of fiction. So I'm making Enrique that kind of guy. It's like so he could explain the society of Spain, Christianity during the time to Humabon. We will hear his words through Humabon, through his perspective. So he will be explaining the mass, the sacrifice of the mass, and Humabon will be seeing that through the lens of a sacrificial priest as well. And then, so there's another, like there are three, what you call this, instances of weeping that I'd like to explain through the story. So first we've seen the tears of Tupas in his conversation with Magellan. The second is the tears of the wife of the principal wife of um, Humabon when she asks for baptism. So this happened after the mass baptism of like 800 or something. No, not I don't know. The first mass baptism, the rest happened like later on. So the first baptism with Humabon happened in the morning or afternoon, sometime during the day on April 14th in the records of Pigafetta. In actuality, it's actually April 13th. They had a Pigafetta, or we weren't able to figure out yet during the time the difference or like the change in the date if you cross like this like this part in the world where like they changed up something like that. Anyhow, so April 14 in the records of Pigafetta baptism, uh, and then later on the baptism of the wife. I'm gonna call her Paraluman. She's gonna be from the north, from the from Luzon. She's gonna speak Tagalog. So I have my reasons for that. Uh, she is allied with the Bendahara in his own game. No? That Bendahara was the one who got her to arrange a marriage with the Mabon. And yeah, she's gonna be like a young, powerful woman, also have with her own game of power here. And their um their relationship will be interesting. So Humabon turns out has to have a has to submit himself to a powerful woman. The previous one was the her his mentor, the mother of Lapu-Lapu. I'm gonna name her Handurao, and she's the one. Handurao is the one who introduced Humabon to the sacrificial priesthood and trained him. So she is replaced by Paraluman psychologically, not as a priestess, psychologically as a dominating figure for Humabon. Because when Handurao died, like Humabon was unhinged. Um, my writing coach Mitya, who used to be a journalist, interviewed a lot of this modern day big men, and then he agreed with this pattern that most of these um, you know orang besar, I mean they have this kind of relationship with their wives, no? So around 90%, most of them. So which is I don't know, it's like it's a confirmation of this pattern. So I didn't know that. I didn't read that through like the literature of the Oran Bizarre, the big man. But and I intuited it, just through like I mean I grew up in this society, so like I guess my own my own experience is some sort of like this data. Uh, so that was a nice confirmation of that intuition. Anyhow, I will be developing that story, that relationship, no? That her character as well in this chapter 6. The Saturnino will also appear there, no? Because this is where we first encounter Saturnino when Paraluman asks for baptism and asks for a symbol. So it turns out they were at one paper that the way um, agreements or important events are recorded in the society was through symbols or at least statues. So the agreement between Humabon and Magellan uh, through the baptism was recorded through the gifting of the statues. No? So an image of Our Lady, an image of the Santo Niño, and the image of Christ. No? So there's only the Santo Niño is extant today. Uh, and later on, well, the line in Picafetta is just that they declared themselves to be brothers, Humabon and Magellan. But I want to create a scene here where they do a blood compact, which will be a preparation for chapter 10. There's another blood ritual there, mirroring this first blood ritual. So the next major scene is the miracle. So the Bendahara gets sick. There are some sacrifices. I will. It's what's mentioned in Picafetta is that Magellan was surprised or shocked by the amount of flesh being sacrificed. So I will make that into human. No, I will interpret that as human sacrifice. Uh, it's a central like theme in this story. Because like why would like Miss Magellan said, um, baptize this guy and let us like and like let us take care of him. No? If he doesn't get cured, sacrifice me, take off my head. So why would Magellan say that if it were just like pigs or chickens, no? So it makes a lot of sense. Like so Magellan, just this is already Middle Ages Europe. They've forgotten their own ritual sacrifice prior to being Christianized. So this is a shocking thing for him. And but this is a normal thing in pre-contact messiahs um, and most of the world. So it makes sense that this is human sacrifice because even in the 1960s, to cure a sickness, especially for a datu like the Bendahara, you offer blood of slaves. Uh, so the miracle happens. I mean, it's recorded there in in the what you call this the Fetus Chronicle, and the miracle um yeah is seen to the eyes of Humabon. So this is like we're not looking at this as modern secular people, scientific revolution era people, but as a pre-contact uh, Datu who also believes in his own power through sacrifice. So he would see this as power, that these people have a certain kind of power to cure. So he would see that through the eyes of power. So the miracle happens. Um, and then from that, so now this is where all these conflicts needs to be resolved. So the Bendahara's game, Humabon's game, Paraluman's game. So I need to unravel all these intentions and forces before the battle. So the battle will be a consequence of the unraveling of these conflicts, uh, or the meeting of these conflicts. No, of course, it's Humabon who will be the master player here, and then the main failure of Humabon that here will be the local maxima not going beyond the local maxima was game. No. Um, hmm, what I'm trying to say is like trying to express here is like the limitations of societies built on people like Humabon, strong men, the big men, and versus like the sultanates with its monotheism, and even the South Asian uh, polities based on Buddhism, for instance. So yeah, and also, of course, the Christian kingships and later on modernity. So there's like the game of Umabon was limited by his game. He couldn't see beyond his own game. So that's the main cultural um, conflict that I wanna express the story in this in Magellan's death. And lastly, I mean, the closing is like I mean, this is just to wrap everything up. So Humabon wins. The bloody massacre. Uh, so it is expressed here through the as a ritual sacrifice. Um, Yeah, the draft is ready if you want to read it. And then the epilogue is like going back to reality, like what actually happened, which is like, it seemed like it was a success, but the or like it seemed like Humabon won. But in the end, actually history has forgotten him, and the boy actually won the Santo Niño. Um, anyhow, um, yeah. So this is done. I'll work on the rest. Maybe record another video for this using Rome for writing fiction and using AI for writing fiction. But I'll show you how to navigate this. So if I send you the link here, you will see like this like the home page here, which is like by date. But if you do a search, search for Raja versus Conquistador, you will see here the different chapters or the different pages linked to this. And for instance, maybe start with chapter one. Yeah, and then just look for uh, this one. Where's the not here? This is the actual chapter or the draft. I mean, the final one is actually this one. Uh, so this is the final the call this the polished chapter. But another way is to go through the all pages here, and then maybe just call this order by mentions, and you will see here. No, this is like yeah. Let me search here, Raha. So here you will see the different chapters. So this graph also contains drafts of my nonfiction work. This one, yeah, this one is yeah. Okay, so that's how you navigate it. Let's look at the graph overview. I haven't really checked this one. I mean, I mostly use what you call this the daily notes pages. So let's see if it's this. I don't know. It's very helpful. Let's see. Uh, these are dates. Anyhow, uh, let's see if this is uh, helpful for you. And before I close, this is my work history. So this is like I've been although I haven't been publishing my Substack. I mean you see that I've been working on this on writing and research with my look at this. But for Raja versus Conquistador, like I'm averaging like this 1 month per chapter. This one is chapter one. I wrote in May, June. I wrote chapter 10 on July. I wrote chapter 2 August and chapter 3 September. And then between those, I mostly do like my nonfiction work. So that's the story. That's how to navigate Chrome. Um, I'll talk about how I use Chrome for writing fiction in a future video, and I also how I'm using AI for writing fiction in a future video. Okay, that's it. How do I